PlayStation and the Nintendo Switch. Phil Spencer talks about Activision games going to Game Pass. Day and date. His wording was a little iffy on that, but we're gonna talk about it. Xbox looks like they're going to be set to release an all-digital Xbox Series X in a few short months. That is very interesting. And HellDivers 2 are making some very needed updates to the game to make it a smoother experience. All of these stories can be found here and many more in episode 198 of the Analog Circle Podcast. I am your host, Kiaun Mitchell, and welcome to the show. I appreciate you guys being here. I truly do. Now, if you guys do want to be a part of the next listener feedback episode, which will be possibly coming up on Wednesday, and shout out to you, Crimson Phoenix. I did get your email, brother, and I will be going over it possibly. I'm hoping for Wednesday. But if you guys want to be a part of that episode, you can do it two different ways. You can either call in, and the phone number is 443-380-0281 and let your voice be heard. Or you can email the show, and the email address is simply the Analog Circle Podcast at gmail.com. So without further ado, guys, I think it is time to get into what we all come here for, and that is the gaming news. Whoo, that went down. So let's get things started with Xbox. So it looks like, according to Exputer reports, Microsoft is set to launch an all-digital version of the Xbox Series X in June or July. I did not see that coming. Now, the interesting thing about this release is the console is allegedly going to be a white design instead of the already established Black Series X design. Now, some of the new features that will be in this console will be a 15% reduction in power consumption. It's going to be a new standby mode that further minimizes power usage. And one of the biggest upgrades to this is it's going to come with a 2 terabyte hard drive, as well as a USB Type-C connector on the front of the console. Now, the report also says it should be more budget friendly, with the price point coming in at between $50 and $100 less than the current Series X, which that would be very, very interesting if they are able to do that, especially in a market where you have somebody like Totoki coming out and saying that pretty much the prices of these consoles can't go down, or at least for the PlayStation 5, is because the parts are still just as expensive to manufacture as they were when the console first came out. So if you mean to tell me that Xbox, this is crazy. Again, this is all alleged. I do want to put that out there. And I actually got this story, if you want to look it up for yourself, on a website called Video Card. So my thing is, if Xbox is able to actually cut the cost by between $50 and $100 and throw in a 2 terabyte hard drive into this console, that would be really, really good value. Now, despite how I may feel about the direction that Xbox is going in, which we will definitely get into that in just a couple of minutes, I will say that for a person that does want an Xbox console and they're trying to get a good deal on one, especially a Series X, being able to get one between, if this report is to be believed, Exputer, who is reporting on this, if it's to be believed that this thing is going to be between $50 and $100 less, putting it at the price range of between $400 and $450. That is a pretty good value. I'm not too cool on the all digital situation at hand, but if you're a person that just wants to play your games and you're not that concerned about physical copies like I am, then it's hard to say that this is not a good buy. It's very difficult, but we will see. So that means that if it's coming out between June and July, this is going to be an announcement at their upcoming June show. Quite possibly. So we will see what happens with this in the future. I do love the fact, again, a 2 terabyte hard drive. That is pretty dope, especially knowing how big and out of control some of these games have gotten over the last couple of years. Games are just ridiculous today, but we will see what happens with this story in the very near future. Let's go ahead and let's move into the next story, which I got from Ars Technica. Now, this week, the official word came down about what 4 Xbox games are going to PlayStation and Switch. So this is the list and the release dates. We have Pentiment, which we thought that was going. That's already been released. That released on February 22nd for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo Switch. Now you have Hi-Fi Rush. We figured that was going to be the next one. That is true. So all of those reports have officially been granted to be correct. So Hi-Fi Rush, that is going to be releasing on PlayStation 5 only. And that's going to be coming out on March 9th. Now, I will say I was kind of shocked that did not have a Switch release as well. So many people just kept saying, not me, but others had said, oh man, this would be a fantastic game for the Switch. This is what they would want. This would be up Nintendo players' alley. And just to see that this game was not able to make the trip over to the Switch, this actually says 2 things to me, or at least one thing. This game is actually requiring probably more power and graphics than, I'll just speak for me, than I initially thought. Because one look at the game, I'm like, oh, it doesn't look that graphically demanding. It doesn't look like you really need a power rig to run this game, looking at the aesthetics of it. But I guess since it's not on the Switch, that does say something about what this game needs to actually have it powered. I know it goes at 60 frames per second and all of that stuff. And I know that they said that it's a rhythm-based kind of game, so the frames are very important to sync up with the beat and all of that stuff. But anyway, the fact of the matter is it is coming to the PlayStation 5 on March 9th. You know what? I might just pick this up, because I'm gonna tell you something, brothers and sisters. I was looking at this game on the Xbox Series X last year, and I said, man, this game looks dope. I went on there to purchase the game onto the Xbox store just to find out it was only available on the Series X. I was like, that sucks. That is a bummer. I can't pick it up. But now that it's going to be available on my platform, the PlayStation 5, I just might have to give Microsoft a couple of my dollars and say, shout out to y'all for this. No, in all seriousness, I hate that this is happening, though. I really do. Because this makes me worried about where Xbox is going in the future. I'm joking about it, but no, I'm a little nervous about this this move that they are doing with their games. But let's move on. So the next game that's coming out on other platforms is going to be Grounded, which that was another game that people figured would be going to the other platforms. Now, that game is going to release on April 16th. It's going to be coming out for the PS4, the PS5, and the Switch did get this game, so that's good for them. The other thing is this game will be cross-play compatible across all platforms. So that's a bonus. So Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, I don't know if that includes PC, more than likely, because I remember when Sea of Thieves had first came out, it was on PC as well, like the cross-play. A lot of console guys did not like playing with the PC guys. So I don't know if that's something that still exists to this day, but at least from this, you'll know that you'll be able to play with PlayStation guys and Nintendo Switch guys. The other thing is, what's the other game? Hold on, I said Grounded. That's Grounded. That ain't no Sea of Thieves. Hold on, I said Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush. Yeah, Grounded. That's the 16th. So my bad. That wasn't, I don't think, compatible with PC, but maybe it was. But it will be cross-play compatible. Anyway, rounding out the list will be, of course, Sea of Thieves. I jumped the gun. But that's going to be releasing only on PlayStation 5, and that's going to be releasing on April 30th. Now, this title will also be cross-play compatible across all platforms. So that is the list. Those leaks, it wasn't even leaks. People just were going out on a limb saying that, they figured that it was going to be these 4 games, and they were spot the heck on. I can't take any type of credit for this. When I had mentioned it on the show, I was going off of what I was reading, and it seemed like all of those reports naming these 4 games was 100% accurate. So the thing is, man, seeing that Sea of Thieves, that's coming out the 30th, I'm gonna tell y'all, seeing these 4 games officially be announced, and I believe that, and you guys had to correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't look at the show, but I believe some of these were leaked, well, not leaked, but announced during the Nintendo Direct, I believe. And did somebody say that Killer Instinct is going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch? I don't think it's the new Killer Instinct. I think it's the 16-bit version, if I'm not mistaken. I think that'll also be going over there to the Nintendo Switch for the, I guess, the retro console, or something to do with their service over there on the Nintendo Switch. I mean, normally, I wouldn't say that's a big deal. I mean, because it's the 16-bit era game. We're talking about Super Nintendo N64 days, as a matter of fact, N64, which that's been forever ago. But this just sets a precedent that I don't like moving forward with Xbox. Everything is up for sale. This is what this says to me. That no game on the Xbox platform is sacred. That means Gears of War, Halo, I don't know what else. Because again, Phil Spencer, he was very, very careful with his wording with Tom Warren, saying that he can't rule anything out. And to me, again, that just says to me, everything is for sale. No matter what it is. If we can make money on your platform, then we're going to sell it to make sure that we're able to get our money back. And I'm going to tell y'all, just looking at this from the standpoint of Hi-Fi Rush, knowing that game literally, if you do the timeline, it literally is going to take slightly over a year to be on another competing platform. I can tell you that year flew by so fast, and I was so busy with other games that I've been playing, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart being the one that I'm into right now. I can tell you, if a game does release on Xbox and I have a real inkling to want to play it, but I may not want to pick up the console, I'm going to tell y'all, a year is not enough for me to say, oh man, I can't do it. I can't do it. I gotta pick up an Xbox to play this game. They don't have a game on their roster as of today. Now that could change. This E3 show, who knows? They got that one good E3 show last year. That was like the best E3 show I had seen from them in I don't know how many years. So they gotta win under their belt. Who knows? Maybe they could bring out another great E3 to possibly make me want to pick up their console? I don't know. At first, I was 100% convinced. And I talked to Lawrence Jones. Shout out to that brother. Man, it was a great conversation. But I'm sitting here at this moment. I can only speak for this moment. I told the good brother Lawrence I would be picking up an Xbox Series X. I would be getting one. But when I sit here and I look at this release schedule, mainly Hi-Fi Rush being the game that interests me the most, because Pentiment,
move this man!
Man, ain't no darn way. When I saw that game, I said, this is utter ridiculousness. It is no way I would ever touch that game, not even in Game Pass. So that doesn't do anything for me. Sea of Thieves doesn't do anything for me. Grounded, not either. That does nothing. But Hi-Fi Rush, that's a game that I could definitely pick up, and I think I would enjoy it. And just going off of that year going by so fast, thinking of it from that perspective, I just don't know. I'm kind of back at start on whether or not to pick up a Series X. And I understand what Phil Spencer said. Not every game is going to go. Phil Spencer, I'm going to be honest with you, brother. I don't believe you. I don't believe anything that you say at this moment in time. Now, if they come out with something that looks like Star Wars Outlaws, I don't know, then maybe we can talk. But anyway, we're going to move on for the sake of time from this story. These 4 games are official. How are you guys feeling about these 4 games? Going to PlayStation and going to Switch. I know some people are going to be on the Phil Spencer time when we all play, we all win. Yay! Get the heck out of here. I can't stand that darn slogan because I don't see PlayStation or Nintendo feeling that same way. If you want to play, doggone it, you pick up their console. Now, granted, I understand PlayStation may be going in a bit of a different direction, but I don't see their games going to Xbox as of yet. But anything can change eventually. But we will see. Let's go ahead and get into the next story. Now, this next story, I actually got it from The Verge. So let's talk about some interesting, and I just mentioned Sony, PSVR 2 news that could really shift some things around. So in a blog post, Sony said, quote, "We're pleased to share that we are currently testing the ability for PSVR 2 players to access additional games on PC to offer even more gaming variety in addition to the PSVR 2 titles available through PS5. We hope to make this support available in 2024. End of quote. Didn't see this one coming. I did not. This was kind of like a blind side because we had heard for about a year, and this is interesting. Man, this is very interesting. If you do the timeline on PSVR 2, it literally turned 1 year old this month. And we know that PSVR 2 has not set the gaming streets on fire. Not so much. They're sold, but the sales, I'm sure, weren't where PlayStation wanted them to be at the time. But so now this brings us to almost, I guess, somewhat of a similar, because I gotta be fair here, almost a similar situation that Xbox finds themselves in with their games not selling as much as they would like for them to and having to spread them across to other platforms. Well, PlayStation or Sony, I'm sure they said, well, look, maybe it's time to open up these floodgates and see what the PC market is going to do. And not only are we going to bring it over to PC, we're going to try and make it happen by 2024 just to get more traction. And I would say that it's that price point, man. That thing is like over $500, or it is $500. The price point is very expensive, but I do understand that the tech inside of that is what you're paying for. The technology inside of the headset. So I get that. But For a long time now, people have been saying that they thought that the PlayStation VR 2 would do much better on PC. And it looks like, I guess Sony has been listening, or at least Totoki has been listening, and they're going to dip their toe into it to see what happens. And it looks like this will possibly be the only way, as it stands right now, for someone that owns a PlayStation VR 2 to actually play Half-Life Alyx inside of a PlayStation VR 2, because I was almost 100% sure that by now, if it was coming, Half-Life Alyx would have already been on the docket for the PlayStation VR 2. But we have not seen it yet officially released. So maybe this is the only way you're going to be able to get that experience with the PSVR 2. We will see, because, again, similar to Xbox. Xbox did it way earlier, back in 2016, getting real comfy and cozy with PC. We're starting to see this bit of a shift that is happening when it comes to PlayStation, where they are starting to kind of, get a little more cozy with the idea of PC at first. We were told that it was going to be at least 2 years. I think it was 3 years at first. They had said it would be until PlayStation games, PlayStation first party games would be appearing on PC. Then it got knocked down to 2 years, and now we're roughly between 1 and 2 years. So we keep seeing that timeline shrink more and more and more as the years go by. So it is fair to say, if you're looking at what looks like the future picture of what PlayStation is going to be doing in the near future, it looks like day and date on PC is just a small window away from actually happening, especially when you start having peripherals that were originally only made for the PlayStation 5 for it to work on, to actually say that we're going to try to do, they didn't say this, but I'm saying they're going to do something, some kind of workaround to make sure that it's actually able to work on PC. That says a lot. So I'll be interested to see what happens with this situation in the, I would say, not too distant future, because they're trying to have this support available before the end of this year. And the year is still young. We're not even in March yet. So we'll keep our eyes peeled to this a little closely, but man, looking at that trajectory, yeah, it's just a matter of time. Day and date on PC for PlayStation games. Now, I don't think that PlayStation is going to go the same route as Xbox, though. I don't see them, outside of MLB, having games release on Xbox. But again, the gaming landscape is changing. I'm a dinosaur in this thing, man. I mean, I'm from the era where you keep your exclusives on your console. You don't ever cross over onto the other console. You keep it where it is, exclusive. That's what you do. Things are changing. The model is changing, and it seems to be changing quite rapidly, I might add. So we'll see what happens in the future. I don't know what kind of impact this is going to have on gaming. I just don't, I don't think any of us know for sure what kind of impact this is going to have. Like, in my mind, I'm already to the point where I believe Xbox is already getting out of the hardware business. That's exactly where my mind is set at. This is just a matter of time before they're going to exit. And this is them actually putting in motion their disappearing act from the console space. This is their roadmap, but that's how I feel about it. But we will see what happens in the near future. Let's go ahead and let's get into the next story that I got from Kotaku. Now, WB had an earnings call on February 23rd with shareholders where Chief Financial Officer Gunnar Welsfels said, and I quote, "This year, Suicide Squad, one of our key video game releases in 2024, has fallen short of our expectations since its release earlier in the quarter, setting our game's business up for a tough year-over-year comp in Q1." End of quote. So it looks like, God dog, Suicide Squad did not do the numbers that they were hoping. And the interesting thing about this is the game actually got delayed for them to try to avoid this situation that they find themselves in anyway, where once people heard that the game was going to have microtransactions and, you know, all of the stuff that most players don't like, doesn't really bother me too much because I don't feel like I have to buy it. You know, if it's a game that I'm just in it for the story, I'm not worried about them selling me DLC or map packs or anything like that, because it's not like you're forced to have to buy anything. That's why I've never understood why people have such a problem with DLCs and with them pushing these other things on to you. It's not like you have to buy it. It's not like if you don't buy it, they're going to take your game offline and you're not going to be able to play. That's just something that I've never really been opposed to, but seems like it's a big thing for a lot of players, game players out there. They don't like it. But yeah, it just seemed like Suicide Squad just was not the game that a lot of people had hoped for. And my thing is, man, I'm going to tell you, I don't believe everybody, you know, with their review scores and how they feel about certain games or where they you know, their impressions of a game, because it's being said now, you guys remember Gotham Knights? Gotham Knights was supposed to have been the worst game ever. Somebody did a comparison with Gotham Knights to Suicide Squad, and they said, oh, Gotham Knights was much better. It was a much better game. But yet, this is the same game that got trashed. I mean, got took through the mud, the garbage, the sewer, where it was supposed to be the worst game ever. But yet, the worst Batman game ever, you're actually saying is better than Suicide Squad, which, I mean, to be fair, the consensus, which I don't believe, but the consensus is that Suicide Squad isn't that great of a game. I would just say, again, try it for yourself. Sometimes I feel like the media, they can just absolutely kill a game before it actually even releases. And not even just the media, social media can kill a game before it is even released. I will never forget The Last of Us Part 2, my game of the generation, greatest game I played last generation. So many people were saying it was the worst game, and for you guys that have played it, you know exactly what happened. No need to get into it here, spoiler free. But because of that situation, they act like the game was the freaking worst game ever. And to me, everybody praised The Last of Us Part 1 so much, saying that was the greatest game ever made during the PS3 era and even on the PS4. I never thought The Last of Us Part 1 was that great. It was a really good game. But when they were saying that was the best game ever, game of that generation, I was like, y'all wildin'. Y'all are absolutely bugging. But for me to actually see the sequel do way better, at least in my opinion, for myself, seeing it actually leapfrog over what they were able to do with the first game, what they were able to accomplish in the second, I said, man, these guys are tripping. It ain't no darn way we are playing the same game. Ain't no darn way. Now, everybody's always entitled to their opinion, but I just use Arkham Knight or Gotham Knights and The Last of Us Part 2 for me to say that they don't always get it right on social media. You know, a lot of times people get it wrong. Sometimes people are jaded. Sometimes it might have something to do with a sexual preference or something like that, where they just absolutely just bomb the game just because of that, off of personal reasons. So I don't trust, what a lot of these guys say. It's I would say just line up with somebody who kind of lines up with the games that you like and the things that you're into when it comes to gaming, to actually get those people's their opinion on what they feel about a game that you may be interested in. But Suicide Squad, unfortunately, and I think a lot of us saw this coming, doesn't seem like it made the numbers. We got Alan Wake 2 out there as well. That didn't make the numbers, and that was actually a game that people had really rallied behind, said it was an excellent game. And that game still hasn't made its money back. It just really makes you just ask the question, why don't games sell more? I mean, it always blows my mind as to why games just don't sell a lot more than what they actually do. I mean, Alan Wake 2, they said they sold like 1.3 million out the gate, which was like their biggest release to date. And even with that 1.3 million, they still weren't able to recoup the money that they needed to make the game a success. And you would think 1 million copies, with the combined PlayStation 5 and Series X being well over 50 plus million, I would have thought more people would have bought into it. But that's the part where Phil Spencer, when he was talking, and I was very reluctant to agree with him, but I had to, because we all see these numbers where he's saying that gaming is not growing. It's not making the money that they needed to make to continue to be successful. It has to be some kind of truth there when you hear these kinds of numbers from these different titles. So it just really makes me wonder, what is the state of gaming going to be in the next couple of years? It really makes me ask, quite a few questions about it. But we'll see. Hopefully with this game with WB and Suicide Squad, unfortunately not towing the mark, and them saying it's going to be a tough year over year for them in quarter one, I'm just hoping that they'll be able to bounce back and, try to get it together with another game. Suicide Squad, I'm definitely going to pick that up for sure. It's just my backlog, man. My backlog is ridiculous right now. So I guess I might be part of the problem, not picking up these games. I would never excuse myself from being the part of the problem, but it's my backlog, man. I can't take on any more games. I'm like 6 games over, in my backlog already, and I'm trying to get those down. But anyway, let's move on. I've rambled enough on this situation. Let's move on to the next story, which I got from Ben Zinga. Now, for a while, some gamers thought that Call of Duty would not be day and date inside of Game Pass. Me, I was that guy. I said, why would they? Call of Duty makes millions upon millions of dollars. Why would you put it in Game Pass day and date? You're going to kill your bottom line. Well, brothers and sisters, that may not be the case after all, because Phil Spencer had an interview with GameFile where he said, and I quote, and I want you to hear the wording on this, though. This is pretty shrewd, if I might add. He says, quote, "Our intent is the game is the full portfolio. Let me repeat that. He says, quote, our intent is the full portfolio of games from ZeniMax, Activision, Blizzard, and XGS, which is, of course, Xbox Game Studios, will be on Game Pass day one. End of quote. Now, I'm going to tell you, brothers and sisters, this is the corporational Phil Spencer talking right here. Corporate Phil. This brother says our intent. That's all you got to say right there. It's his intent to do this. You could have intent on doing 100 different things. I have intent on being a millionaire, a multi-millionaire. Yeah, I may give it a go, give it my best shot, but does it mean that I'm going to actually become that? I don't know, because I have the intent of it being a situation or being a reality. I just don't like the word on this, man. I mean, if he was going to bring them to Game Pass, he shouldn't have said, and it'd be no questions, and maybe I'm just being extra critical on Phil Spencer right now. Phil Spencer, the CEO, not Phil Spencer, the man, the CEO of Xbox. That's who I always am giving a bit of some question marks to, because I don't know Phil and his personal life. That's not my concern. I'm just talking about Phil Spencer, the CEO of Xbox. To me, if this was this was going to be what he says, day and date, he could have just simply said all of our games, whether it be Activision, Blizzard, Xbox Game Studios, ZeniMax, all of our games are going to be day and date inside of Game Pass. That's it. That's all you got to say, Phil. This our intent business makes me a little leery and weary about what is going to happen. And granted, he could absolutely do what I am a little questionable of. This could actually be the case where the new Call of Duty comes out that I believe is supposed to be based on the Gulf War, if I'm not mistaken. But it could be a situation where when that game releases on store shelves or digital storefronts, that people that have Game Pass, excuse me, guys, will have this inside of their service day and date. That could happen possibly, but I don't know. I don't know, Phil. It seems like it's a bit of a catch with this. And this is another thing that I want to mention. Hopefully I can make the two kind of come together as one, because some of you might not have known this. I just found this out. Now, of course, you guys know I don't have an Xbox Series X. I don't have Game Pass. I'm going to talk about Game Pass in just a second, too, because I told y'all I was going to try it on my TV. I'm going to tell y'all about that in a minute. But the thing that I found out later in the week was Dead Island 2 actually did a stealth drop on Game Pass. Now check this out. It was a stealth drop on Game Pass Ultimate, the ultimate tier. So I wonder, when Phil Spencer says that it is his intent to put the full portfolio of games from ZeniMax, Activision, Blizzard, Xbox Game Studios, all of those games onto the service, is a bit of the asterisk. And I know I pronounced that totally wrong, but is it a bullet point that's being left out that says that maybe for those games to be inside of your Game Pass day and date, you will need the ultimate tier subscription of Game Pass? Now, I will say this. I don't think it's anything wrong with that. Look, you gotta add value to your ultimate tier. You have to be bringing value to keep the customer fan base there. So if it does come to a situation where in order for you to get all of these ZeniMax games, these Activision games, Call of Duties on day and date, into the service, you need the ultimate in order for that to happen. I can see that I don't think that's a big deal. But I just think that what Phil Spencer should do, and maybe he's going to do it in June, is he will announce that in order for you to get these games on day and date, these Call of Duty games, you have to be signed up for the ultimate tier. And I think if that's the case, that's fair, because you're going to be losing a lot of money on not selling Call of Duty. Now, granted, I think the numbers have already said that more PlayStation gamers do buy Call of Duty as opposed to Xbox gamers. So you're still going to be able to make a lot of your money off of PlayStation for that alone, being able to have them actually buying the game alone on that platform. So that'll help to make up some of the revenue. But actually not having to make it so people on Xbox have to buy the game, I don't care how small of an audience it is, every little bit does help. So with you losing some of that possible revenue from people just saying, oh, forget that, I'll just opt into Game Pass and get it that way, for you to make up some of that revenue, at least have it so these players or gamers will be inside of the ultimate tier to get the most, to get the maximum that you're able to get out of those game players. So we'll see. Hopefully that's something, like I was saying, hopefully he'll address it at their E3 show and put it in that context, because I think that, again, it's the messaging. Messaging kills them every single time. If he just comes out there and tells people, look, this is the deal. This is what we're going to do. If you want Call of Duty in the service, this is what you need. You need Game Pass Ultimate. Because when I saw, again, this Dead Island 2 stealth drop go into Ultimate Game Pass, I said, oh man, this is probably going to set a bit of a precedent. And it probably was a stealth drop, not to make everybody else who's not inside of Game Pass Ultimate, not to get them upset or ruffle their feathers. But again, you get to a certain degree, unless you're talking about certain things out there on the market, you get what you pay for, and if you're paying more, then you should get more. So we'll see how Phil Spencer actually works this out in the future. Again, that wording of our intent, man, it's question marks all over the place with that. So hopefully later on in June, when they possibly are going to be talking about this new all digital Xbox Series X coming out, possibly $50 to $100 less than the model that's on the market right now. Hopefully he'll be able to go into those details about this whole situation evolving around Activision and all of the games being put inside of Game Pass day and date. Let's go ahead and let's get into the next story that I actually got from Games Radar. Now, it is no doubt, God dog, this game right here, HellDivers 2 has taken the gaming community by storm. So much so that the developers, I got all tongue-tied there. Let me repeat that, rewind, that the developers over at Arrowhead Studios weren't even ready for the onslaught of players wanting to play the game. And because of this, CEO of Arrowhead Studios, John, his last name is Paulstedt, said on Twitter, hopefully I said his name correctly, but he said this on Twitter, or if you want to call it X. He said, quote, "We expect the HellDivers 2 servers to hit the 800,000 CCU max capacity in 3 to 4 hours. There might be some light queues. To get in at peak. Also, how crazy," and this was dope, He says, how crazy is this message from a studio of 100 devs? End of quote. Man, 100 dev studio. Golly, this game right here has just shot off like a missile. I've heard some people out there on different podcasts saying, the game isn't all that great. It's not for me. I don't like the way it plays, all of this stuff. And the only thing I can say to myself as my question to me was, would you be saying this if it was on your preferred console? I mean, yeah, dog, brothers and sisters, we had Phil Spencer out there mad. The dog on HellDivers 2 wasn't on his platform, saying he doesn't think it does anything for gaming. Come on, Phil. This is what I'm saying. Hey, Phil, PlayStation is not worried about Xbox, brother. They are worried about their platform and, of course, PC. They are not tripping on what you got going on your platform, your player base, your customers. They're like, look, we are feeding our gamers. That is our primary concern. Phil Spencer wants to be out there screaming, we are the world, we are the children. That's what he wants to do. But PlayStation is out here making sure that their customers are fed. They're putting them first. Unlike something that I feel Phil Spencer has done with the Xbox, with his Xbox customers. Sometimes I feel like he kind of gives them a back seat to a certain degree. But the other thing about this is this story is Paulstedt, the CEO. He let it be known on social media when responding to a player that they're not just working on, quote, optimizations, end of quote, but are, quote, working on some real cool stuff, end of quote. Now, this has left some to believe they're working on mechs and a faction like they did in the first game. And I remember, I think that one of those trailers leading up to the release of the game did show some mechs, gave some people some Titanfall 2 feels with the game. So if they're adding that as well, and they got like a real roadmap, I'm saying if they do have like this real roadmap that they can keep on capitalizing on to keep the momentum going, This could be absolutely a huge deal, not just for PlayStation, but more importantly, this 100-man dev studio. This is absolutely incredible, and this just goes back to you just don't know what game is going to hit. A game it can either fold or it can just flourish. It can fold or flourish. And, you just can never put a real gauge on it. But just the fact that this game had to go up to 800,000, the max capacity. And I believe he sent this message out maybe about 28 hours ago, somewhere around there. It's been a little over a day. So hopefully they were able to actually make this happen to get it to that point. And I just hope that they're able to continue to feed this game, to continue to put out new content, to keep the player base very much so engaged. Of course, this is never more, well, you can never say never, but it's not my intent for me to play this game because y'all know I'm not really an online gamer. That's really not where I play too much. But I just say that to say that I still want this game to really do well, to do excellent, because goodness knows, man, God knows that the industry needs it. I mean, we need some money flow coming in. We need more players. We need to make sure that we can keep just gaming as a whole going. And with this game actually being as successful as it has been so early on, The other thing I would say is I hope they don't get burnout where they found success, but now it's harder and harder for them to keep up with the success, because it's kind of like, I guess, once you become famous, they say that's when the work really begins. So the build up to actually getting famous is actually like the easy part. But once everybody knows who you are, once you become famous, once you got a hit record or, you got a hit movie up under your belt, now the real work starts. So hopefully this team over at, I believe their name is Arrowhead Studios, hopefully they will be able to pace themselves and make sure, again, that they're able to continuously feed their player base, because they really have something. It looks like it's something special on their hands, at least for right now. This is the game. And yeah, shout out to them. They definitely deserve a lot of credit. Shout out to them. So with that being said, we are going to move into the next story. Well, before we get into an official story, I did want to quickly, I got to do this. I got to shout out Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for scoring a 92 Metacritic score, making it the second highest rated Final Fantasy game of all time. Darn! The second highest rated. Now, if you were wondering what game it wasn't able to beat, it was actually Final Fantasy 9. I was about to say Final Fantasy 7. Final Fantasy 9, that still has the record of scoring a 94, but that was based off of 22 reviews. 22. If you were wondering, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has had 119. So it's been almost 4 times the amount of reviews for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth versus Final Fantasy 9. And I would say that with that ratio, almost 4 times over the amount of what Final Fantasy 9 actually was, actually had reviewers, the amount of reviewers, I would say that I think it's a full-blown conclusion that Final Fantasy 7, maybe not on paper, well, I should say maybe not officially, but on paper, is a better game than Final Fantasy 9, because it was 119 reviews versus 22. So I am just so excited. Will I be buying this on day one? I got to keep my word. No, I'm not going to be buying it on day one. They said one playthrough. I was looking at a review. I believe it was IGN. I believe that guy said he clocked in at over 80 plus hours. And he still didn't finish everything. He went through the campaign. He said it was so much more to do. And he had that many hours. I'm like, oh, heck no. It ain't no way on earth I would ever be able to finish that game. Not right now with 6 other games in the backlog. It is no way. And I'm trying to keep the backlog down this generation. I'm trying not to have it spiral out of control like it did last generation. I was looking through those games from last generation. I had about I ain't gonna say 40, but at least around like 25 to a 30 game backlog between the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. And I don't want that again. I don't want that in my life. Not this generation. I'm trying to keep it to a minimum. And even 6 is starting to get a little out of control. So again, I won't be buying the game on day one, because I'm trying to learn my lesson. Last generation, I was just buying games left and right, and they would just be sitting. Final Fantasy VII Remake is still sitting in the plastic upstairs on my shelf, my gaming shelf, untouched. So I still haven't even, God darn, I still haven't even played the first one yet. So how am I going to move from the first one on to the second one and I ain't even beat the first one? It's not going to happen. But shout out to them for having such a fantastic score. This is awesome to hear. I'm glad that they worked very hard. And I just hope, I really, really hope that it gets the support that it deserves. I mean, great games. I always say great games should be rewarded with great sales. And I'm just really hoping that people that are into Final Fantasy, especially Final Fantasy VII, the new systems that they have in place, I'm just really hoping that this game really gets the support that it deserves. Again, great games deserve great support, so hopefully the community will show out for it, show up and show out, and definitely just show their support. But let's go ahead and let's move on into the next story. And this next story, I actually got it from PC Games in like Nancy.com. So if you're a Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown fan, you will be happy to know that game director, now I'm a butcher this brother's whole name. His name is Mounir, spelled Mounir. I'm gonna say Mounir, and his last name is spelled Radi. Radi? I guess Mounir Radi. He wanted to thank players for their support of the game and added that the team is, quote, far from being done, end of quote. Now, we also stated, quote, we've got some cool plans for the coming months. These plans include free updates and adding more content and modes for you to challenge, explore, and enjoy. Our first free update is coming soon, end of quote. So it looks like for them, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown has been successful. Now, I don't know what the numbers are, didn't get the numbers yet, but he's just saying thank you for the support. He greatly appreciates it. And some of these modes, I'm wondering, because this is a mode that has become very popular over the last couple of years, the Games Plus, New Game Plus mode. I'm sure that is probably going to be one of the modes that they're going to include for free with some of these other updates, because he said these modes are going to be for you to challenge and explore and enjoy. So if it's going to be a challenge, I'm figuring that, New Game Plus, how good would that be to go through the game again? I'm trying to find new items and exploring different places. And I'll say this about that game too. Prince of Persia, the Crown. What's it called again? I gotta look at it again. What's it called? I told you my memory is terrible. The Lost Crown, I think. Yeah, The Lost Crown. I actually played the demo of that game, and man, it was solid. It was a solid game. I kind of dug it. It wasn't. I'm not gonna say it was like totally my cup of tea. But it wasn't a bad game. It wasn't. I mean, maybe further down the line, maybe I would pick it up. I don't know. It was a good game, but it just wasn't, at least at this moment in time, it just wasn't what I was really looking for. A side scroller, Metrovania type of style game. It just wasn't quite there, but it was good for what it was. I mean, for $50, I think it costs, it's worth $50. I think it is. Who knows? I might pick it up. I don't know. I don't want to lie to y'all. At this moment, I don't intend on picking that game up, but who knows? In the future, maybe sometime down the road. But it's good to see that it did get some of the support. It did get some support from different gamers, different players, and hopefully it'll continue to be able to get that support in the coming months, and I don't know about years. That's a bit of a stretch, but these next couple of months, hopefully it's able to also, continue on that same path. But let's get into the next story coming way of comic book. So if you're a, man, I'm all tongue-tied, god dog. If you're a fan and active player of Mortal Kombat 1, then you have some great features coming your way, because it has been announced by NetherRealm Studios that crossplay, being spelled with a K, crossplay will be coming to the game at some point in the next few days. Now, unfortunately, no date has been given, but be on the lookout for it over the next couple of days. Also, the version of the game that will support cross-play, these are the different versions that are going to support it. It will be PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, Steam, and the Epic Store. So as it stands right now, the Switch is the odd man out, at least for now. And I don't think that ain't no stretch, because when that version came out on the Switch, God, dog, you talk about butchered, man, come on. You know what? They need a darn award for even getting that game on the Switch. It was a terrible port, though. It was a terrible port. But they got it to work on that joint. I'm sure they said, man, ain't no darn way we're going to have the Switch playing up against the Series X and S and the PlayStation 5, along with PC gamers as well. That thing is not going to be able to last under those doggone circumstances. Let's just put that to the side. Maybe, they said maybe one day it'll get patched and to be able to be cross-play. But right now, don't you doggone expect it anytime soon. Now, the other piece of news is on February 28th, for Mortal Kombat, of course, on February 28th, Peacemaker will be available for early access players, and March 6th for those planning to buy him separately. Now, he will be officially the third, I believe, he'll be officially the third DLC character released since the game has come out. So this is great, man. Like I told you guys before, at one point in time, I was against crossplay. I thought that you should only be able to play with people that you bought the version of the game for. You know, if you bought it on PlayStation, you play with guys on PlayStation. Bought it on Xbox, play with people on Xbox. And that's the way it should be. But, you know, again, hearing about these communities needing to survive, hearing about these player counts dwindling faster and faster, you know, having people not continuing to stay on the game, or if people are looking for people to play against, they're sitting in the lobbies for 20 and 30 minutes. Nobody really wants that. So in order to remedy that situation, it does seem like crossplay is the best thing to do to keep certain communities thriving, you know, over a long course of time. So I would say that it is a good thing that this is happening. And shout out to them for making so many different platforms become cross-play compatible with each other. So with that being said, we got this final story here, which is really not a story, but I got it from Insider Gaming. But this is for anyone that is interested. There was a leaked shot of Stellar Blade's box art, which revealed the game's download size, which will be around 35 gigabytes, which isn't at all a lot. At one point in time, 35 gigs would have seemed like, 150 gigs. But with games being the size of like God of War Ragnarok, which are taking up like 84 gigabytes, looking at 35 gigs is what you got to use in order to download this game onto your hard drive. That ain't bad at all when you're thinking about it from that perspective. Also, I will say Stellar Blade, or what some of y'all call it, Stellar Camps. I will say that is a day one purchase for me. That is one of those games where something is going to fall by the wayside. Something. And this is, again, how the backlog starts. I told you guys Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I just know I'm not going to be able to finish that. That's just not going to happen. 80 plus hours? No way. No way in the world. Something like Stellar Blade, I'm taking it that's probably going to be around like the 12 to 15 hour range, somewhere around there if you're doing all of the extra missions and trying to get different items and stuff. Maybe you max out at between 25 hours, somewhere around there. But I'm taking it that Stellar Blade is going to be one of those jump in, hop in and play and get back out type of game. So I will definitely be getting that on day one. I'm very, very excited about it, and I can't wait to jump into it sometime in April. I believe it's April. I'm going to look it up just so y'all will know. About to pull this up right now on the phone. Bear with me in real time here. Bear with me. Y'all probably just heard the phone go off. But we're about to see when does this come out? Man, how long have we been here? Man, I've been here over an hour and I had y'all here over an hour. I ain't mean for that to happen. Let me look this up. When does Stellar Blade release?
According to Dexerto, Stellar Blade launches exclusively on PS5 on April 26, 2024.
Oh, there we go. All right, April 26, 2024. I will be there. But anyway, guys, that is the end of the gaming news this week, which leads us into video game theater. And in this week's video game theater, we will be taking a look back at what I would call, I don't know if y'all would call it this, but I would call it a classic. We're going to take a look back at May 17th, 2011 to LA Noire. And we're going to pick up on the introduction of the game. So we will be back with the final section of the podcast again after this week's video game theater. Stay tuned, guys.
A city on the verge of greatness. A new type of city based not on the man, but on the automobile, the car, a symbol of freedom and vitality. To breathe and not be overlooked by his neighbors. A city where a man's home is his castle, a quarter acre of the dream made possible by victory. A city of opportunists. A city of dreams, where Hollywood will shape the thoughts and desires of the entire planet. A city of pioneers. A city of dreamers. A city of undercurrents, where not everything is as it seems. A 20th century city that will become a model for the world. A city that has no boundaries, that will stretch as far as the eye can see.
One of my absolute favorites, LA Noire. Gosh, that game was so incredible. I tell you, when I played that game, and that game was so different in the sense of when you played it, you actually had to look at the characters' faces to see if they were actually lying or telling the truth. Now, I would be lying to y'all if I was to tell y'all if I was able to get it right or not. Sometimes I would get it right by looking at the face. A lot of the time, no, they were fooling the heck out of me. I was getting fooled left and right. But I did love the fact that it was just that detailed where you were, well, that was like I said, that was the hook of the game, to be able to look at the suspect's face and be able to tell if they were lying and telling the truth. It was just great. Then on top of that, having the story that it had, I will not do any spoilers here, but that game was absolutely fantastic. What a twist. Anyway, I'm not going to ruin it. Anyway, let's go ahead and move into the final section of the podcast where, of course, I ask you, the fantastic listener, a question. And I know you saw the question already when you clicked on the episode. I greatly appreciate that. But let's go over it officially. So the question this week is, will PlayStation gamers buy Xbox games? Now, we have heard from so many PlayStation fans, me included, I got to include myself in this, that Xbox doesn't have any great games. Xbox doesn't have anything that even remotely interests them. But yet here we are. Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, god darn Pentiment, Sea of Thieves, and then you got doggone, and I always forget the name of that game. The Honey I Shrunk the Children game right there. I forget the name of that darn game, but y'all know what I'm talking about. The question is, are PlayStation gamers going to buy those games? If Xbox was to bring more of their games to the PlayStation console, would they actually buy them, PlayStation fans? Because the one thing is that I would be interested to know, what does Xbox do if these games don't sell on PlayStation? Like, they get the games over there and they do a dud. They do like 2,000 copies or like 100 copies. I know that's probably far-fetched that it would do that bad. But I just wonder what happens if these numbers don't add up to whatever magic number Xbox is looking for. So that is my question to you guys. Me, would I buy Xbox games on a PlayStation? You know, for me, it's a little different. It's a little different. Hi-Fi Rush, to me, that really doesn't. I've never looked at Hi-Fi Rush as a Xbox centric game. When I think about Xbox centric games, I'm thinking about Halo, I'm thinking about Gears, I'm thinking about Forza, even though I don't play it. I'm thinking about games that are just staples inside of that ecosystem, where I just couldn't see myself just off of GP getting Halo on my PlayStation. I just can't do it. I can't do it. You know, so that wouldn't be my thing. If it was a Halo that I wanted to play that bad, I would just pick up an Xbox for that. And speaking of picking up an Xbox, that's the question for this week. But I meant to go into the thing about Game Pass. Speaking of Xbox, I tried to play Game Pass on my Samsung TV. And it was now Sarah Bond. Now I could have definitely not understood her correctly. But when I hooked everything up, Sarah Bond, I was under the impression that my games were going to follow me as long as I had a profile. I had my profile come up on my Samsung TV. It was crazy. I was shocked by this. Absolutely blown away. My name and everything, my gamer score, everything came up flawlessly. I went to try to find my games. Wasn't a darn thing there, brothers. I said, man, I thought my library was going to follow. I thought it was going to travel with me. So on my Samsung TV, that did not happen. Also, the thing that really blocked me from actually even signing up for Game Pass was I kept trying to hook my controller up through Bluetooth to the TV, and it would not take the controller. Now, granted, I have an Xbox One controller. Now, is Xbox One's controller not Bluetooth? I mean, you guys will have to tell me, but I was under the impression that you could use any controller that you had if it was an Xbox controller to play Game Pass on your TV. Now, whether or not I misunderstood that, it could be on me. But as of right now, I didn't go any further to sign up for it because the controller didn't work. And who knows, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit with my games not being there. I want to be fair here because I didn't officially sign up for Game Pass. I was intended on doing it once I got my controller to actually sync up to my TV, and then I would know it was going to work and I was going to sign up. But with the controller not working and not being able to sync up with my TV, that just kind of cut it off for me right there. You know, so somebody just let me know something. If you guys are using a newer Xbox controller to do this or what the case may be. But yeah, didn't go through like I wanted it to. But anyway, again, question for the week is, will PlayStation gamers buy Xbox games? I would love to hear from you, and I can hear from you two different ways. I want to do a show this Wednesday, so please, guys, write in, call in, do what you got to do, because the show, it truly is dependent on you. And again, shout out to you, Crimson Phoenix. I have not forgotten you, my good brother. But if you do want to be a part of that episode, you can do it two different ways. You can either call in at 443-380-0281 and literally let your voice be heard, or you can email the show, and the email address is the Analog Circle Podcast at gmail.com. I was your host, Kiaun Mitchell, and again, I truly appreciate you guys for being here. I truly, truly do. Now, of course, before we finally tie this thing up and put a bow on it, always remember one thing. It is not about the consoles. It is about the games. So until possibly Wednesday, when we do it again, you guys take care. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.